The people who can push through, another push-up, they can push through another 100 kicks. They can push through another warm-up. They can push through another sparring round. That pain is what initiates the transformation. Hey, what is going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of Off the Mat. My name is Josh Dumoulin, and this is
Nicole Stratichuk.
Did I ever tell you about the project?
Yes. In fact, you have.
Oh, I did? Okay, good.
Okay.
So, you were around when I did the project?
I was,
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
that's right. All right.
It was just
of course.
recent.
That's right. So, back in February, I did, of course, the MDK project class 016. And I was just thinking about it today and as we were getting ready for this podcast episode. And I was thinking about this one particular evolution that we do called the pit. And the pit is exactly like it sounds. It is a literal gravel pit that is, I don't know, I want to say a few 100 feet wide. And I think they say from one end to the other, it's like a quarter mile long. We never ever crawled the entire length of the pit. I guarantee you we probably crawled a quarter mile, but anyway, it is a big giant pit. It is filled with rocks and gravel and train tracks. Some of the rocks are jagged. There's weeds growing everywhere. There's glass shards. It is as horrible as it sounds. And when it's raining and wet and whether it's dry or hailing on us, it's an awful place to be. And it is one of the evolutions in the project that actually breaks the most number of people. And it is one of the probably best evolutions there is. And the PIT actually has an acronym. And the PIT stands for Pain Initiates Transformation. And so it just got me thinking about, for me in particular, anyway, the PIT was one of my favorite evolutions. It was so much my favorite one at the end, once I really developed the value of the PIT and why I enjoyed it. I actually went back after we were all done the class, and I dug up where I actually buried myself in one of the evolutions, and I dug up pit dirt, and I kept this. And as a reminder that the pit cannot break me. So I dug this up, and I threw it in my suitcase and traveled home with a Ziploc bag full of pit dirt. So this is actual pit dirt, and I have to thank Steve for this one here because, again, it was one of the best, most transformative evolutions. Again, because of the difficulty, because of the pain it brought. Out of all of the evolutions, the physical scarring that the pit did the most damage to everybody.
Right.
We were scarred up, our arms, our chest, our legs, our back, everything. And through that pain, there was transformation. The constant repetitive motion of the crawling, the starting over, the beginning again, the going through the pit, the crawling on your back, the crawling on your stomach, through all of that pain, through all of the repetitive over and over again, there was many things that start to go through your mind. And what happens to a lot of people is they begin to wonder why they are doing something like the project. Why are they going to go through this torturous 3-day event with a Navy SEAL and a Marine? Why are they going to go through this? And some of us, we all question at some point, like, what are we doing? Like, why are we crawling over and over? And when you watch the reels on Instagram and YouTube, you think they're crawling for a few minutes. Mm-hmm. But we would crawl for hours, like till 2 a.m, till like all night long. We would be in that, especially the first night. We were in there for, I don't even know how long. And so that's what happens is everybody begins to question why they're going through something. But for the few that can stick through that pain, there's a massive transformation that happens. There is growth behind it. And as I was thinking about the pit today, and as I was just kind of reminiscing and honestly smiling about it, because thinking back on it, the memories I had with the 13 other guys that I did the project with, and crawling that pit over and over through the 3 days, getting wet, having to go soak in the tubs and go back through the pit and back in the tubs and back in the pit, crawl through, crawl out. There was a lot of transformation that happened with me. As I would crawl through it, I would remind myself why I am doing something like the project. Why going through the pain there? What am I learning from this? What am I really seeing myself? What vision do I have for myself as the man, the leader, the husband, the father? All of these things that I want to be the best version of. Going through that pain, I would have the opportunity to think about those things. And like I said, a lot of people, like our first night, we lost over 20 people. I think it worked out to be, because we started with 36. We had 14 by the morning. So yeah, like 22 people. We lost them in the pit.
Oh, so most of those people rang.
Pretty
they
sure,
ring
yeah,
the bell,
like-
but they rang the bell
Yes,
while
during the pit.
Yeah, okay.
So what would happen is we would have to crawl the pit, and for some reason we would either be going too slow, or we maybe wouldn't be crawling with a battle buddy, and Steve would make us start over. And when we would have to start over, people would get frustrated. Well, that's life. There's going to be a lot of setbacks where you're going to be going through something and you're going to have to start over. So the pit in this way is if you watch it on Instagram, some people look at it and it's like, oh, why would you do something like that? But the lessons that you learn in the pit are, again, hugely transformative. The pain that initiates the transformation is life-changing. But the starting over would get a lot of people. A lot of these men would have to start over, and then they'd be like, I'm done. After the third, fourth time of having to start over, they ring the bell. Then, they offer us an out. Hey, if somebody rings the bell, nobody has to crawl the pit anymore. And then somebody would ring the bell, and sure as hell, we would just have to go crawl the pit anyway. So it didn't matter. But like the constant repetitive motion, which again, people get tired of. So what do? They quit. The starting over gets exhausting, gets grueling. You feel like you're failing, so you quit. But again, the people who can endure the pain the most and endure the struggle and face the adversity will then have that transformation. So the pit was something that, again, I particularly really enjoyed. So as I was thinking about the pit today, I was thinking about the quote from General Choi. General Choi, of course, founder of Taekwondo. And the quote is, "Pain is the best instructor, but no one wants to go to his class." And I really think when I first heard that, I didn't quite understand it. I probably took the surface level of it, which I think actually most people do. And they hear the word pain. Well, how is that a good instructor, getting a black eye and broken bones? And they just hear that, and I think they think very surface level with it. So instead of actually thinking about the growth that happens, not just pain, but through adversity, through struggle, through hardship, you are learning lessons that help you in your martial arts training, but also in your life. And so when people come to us to learn confidence, discipline, it's really pain that we're administering on the floor, whether it's through push-ups, whether it's through the running, whether it's through the sparring, whether it is
through the
a 302,
repetition.
the repetition, you're going to do 100 kicks on this leg and another 100 kicks on this leg, the pain, the repetitive motion of it, there is growth. And there's an instructor there. And when I think about what we do on the floor, and as I develop and grow as an instructor, I think of myself more as the person who just administers it. But the pain and the adversity and the struggle in your martial arts training, that's the instructor. Not me, not any of the coaches and instructors out there. We are simply administering this pain. We are administering the class plan, and then it's us who go through the struggle and the adversity and the challenge of it that really then teach us the lesson of the martial art that we're learning. So it just got me really thinking about the pit and how it was my favorite evolution, or one of my favorite evolutions. But it also just got me thinking about that quote. And so when I think about students who kind of hit that roadblock, right when we hit that sort of mid-level range, whether it's green or blue belt, in our style, of course, and I know other styles green and blue might be earlier or later, depending on systems. A lot of people will go through that repetitive motion, that repetitive, I've done these kicks already. I've heard them talk about the pivoting of the foot. I've heard them talk about the chamber. I've heard them talk about the knee bent, the back leg straight, the toes here, the bit. I've heard them talk about the repetitive motion, and then they quit, right? And I think about all of the people who have made it so far and hit that adversity, hit that struggle, and then decide to quit. And I always wonder where those people are sometimes. Anyway, but the people who can push through, another push-up, they can push through another 100 kicks. They can push through another warm-up. They can push through another sparring round. That pain is what initiates the transformation. And when we see people go from white to black many years later, we really see the transformation in that individual. And so anyway, it just makes me think of a lot of people shy. I've heard people talk about this quote in particular, the pain is the best instructor. I don't like that. It's a little aggressive. Again, if you're looking at it at the surface, I think about it with the word discipline. Many people confuse the word discipline with, I beat my kid. No,
That's not discipline.
That's not discipline, but they confuse it with it. And oftentimes when we hear the word discipline, that's what we think. We think we're disciplining an individual. We are lecturing them. We are giving them trouble. We are
like a disciplinary action.
A disciplinary action, right? But discipline is doing something that you should do even when you don't want to do it.
Especially when you don't want to do it.
Especially when you don't want to do it. So that is what discipline is. And so same thing here with pain. Pain being the best instructor. Pain isn't me going around and beating you with a stick. Pain isn't me having you stand there while I kick you in the stomach. Pain isn't even Steve making us crawl the pit over and over. That's not what that's about, right?
Right.
That is again a very surface level. It is the lesson of the pain, of the adversity, of the challenge that we're getting from it. So again, when I was kind of thinking about it, oftentimes it's I lead a class, I teach a class, but it's we're simply just saying, here it is.
Here's the struggle.
Here's the struggle. You're going to go through this.
Yeah.
And here's what we're going to do. But it is the pain of it that's actually the best instructor.
So I find that interesting because when you come to a class and whatever the class plan is for that day, let's just say it's 100 kicks on the left leg, 100 kicks on the right leg. And someone might find that that's easy for them, right? And so they take it as an easy, instead of embracing the challenge for themselves, and instead of doing 100 half effort kicks, that's what they'll do instead of doing working on something, working on speed or power or agility or things like that, right? They take the easy route,
right,
because they have, this is an easy challenge for me. And because we're teaching a group class, so we have to pick something, but you can take whatever that pain is and make it your own, right? And so where's the challenge for you, and where are you going to see the growth? And I know, because I'm just speaking from experience, lots of times I've gone to classes or to different courses or just experienced just life in different ways, but there's always going to be struggles, or there's going to be things that you have to do, and you can take advantage of them and lean into them or not. And so, I feel like you have really harnessed that power to lean into struggle, to lean into the adversity and use it as a tool for growth, right? And so I think we're just coming from a place where we want to see that for all of our students in
Absolutely.
martial arts. And I think that's a great, like, we offer such a great environment to do it, right? Where, you know, ultimately it is safe here, right? And it's in a controlled environment, but so you have to come with the right mindset that you are ready to take on some struggle, ready to take on some pain, knowing that there's growth and greatness on the other side.
Exactly. Yes. And that's what's important for each individual to remember is that that is what, again, ultimately the value of martial arts is to put yourself through adversity in a controlled environment so that when you actually face real adversity, real challenges, real struggles, your body, your mental state
You've
is
been there
familiar.
before. Yeah, you've been there before. You've exercised
Exactly.
that whole mindset. You've exercised
right.
that skill before. You've practiced it and working towards perfection of, you know, practice or doing the hard things. Like, that is a skill set, right? We've talked about that before, as like being able to lean into the challenge and overcome that. That is a whole skill set that you are in charge of developing, right? And you have full control of that. And so in the realm of martial arts, we get to come to a controlled environment and do that for ourselves, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And so here's another thing I was thinking about too, and I kind of was thinking about this one. I've heard this one before, but we've of course all heard of IQ, right? Your intelligence quotient.
Right.
Okay. We've all heard of now, especially I think it's more of a more recent one, but EQ.
Yeah.
Your emotional
Yeah,
quotation.
your emotional intelligence quotient.
Exactly, right? So, and we hear that especially a lot as leaders. It's not always about your IQ; it's about your EQ, right? Like, so there's that. But there is this other one that not a lot of people talk about, and this is exactly what we're doing in our classes, and it is your AQ, your adversity quotient. And so when you are putting yourself through the adversity and through the struggle, again, that is where you're going to develop that skill to then be able to face adversity with more ease, because that muscle, that mental muscle has now been built for you. So you have put yourself through adversity so that way you can build up that AQ and then be able to take on a more difficult, challenging task with ease, because that muscle now has been developed. So just something to think about when you're coming to class.
I like that thing. Like, your IQ is generally stable throughout your lifetime, right?
Yeah, mine's not getting any smarter at all.
So IQ is pretty stable, but what you're talking about, EQ, the emotional intelligence part, that is something that can be developed, and the AQ is something that can be developed as well. So even though, like, IQ is whatever number it is, but you can work on your AQ and EQ and develop them both. And the way that you presented it there is like, that AQ is all about yourself and training yourself. And if you can train that plus train your EQ, right, then that's going to help you get through challenges as a team or with other people.
That's right.
Or connection with other, other students, other coaches, and as leaders, right? If you have high EQ and high AQ, like, you're going to be superstar, right?
Yep.
Like, that's I like that.
Yeah. So anyway, just something to kind of think about, right? Like, there's all these,
And that it's a choice, right? Like,
well, that's just it. Like, so
it's your choice to do that.
and which is something I think you should do. Like, I think people should do it. And here's the thing. I'm obviously prone to, of course, what we teach and where we train. And I hope that everybody if you're close enough to live by us, you have the opportunity to train with us. But here's the thing. I don't care where you are, what style you train. It doesn't matter. Put yourself in martial arts. Put your kids in martial arts, because you're going to develop that AQ. You're going to be able to challenge yourself regularly in a controlled environment. And I think especially now, like, we live such comfortable lives.
That's what I was
I mean, honestly, like for real, like don't get me wrong, there's hardships out there for some people, and some people have it harder.
Yes.
But if you're honestly sitting here listening to this right now
Yeah.
on your cell phone, on your computer, on whatever device it is that you're listening to us on, you're sitting there streaming it in your truck. I mean, you got it pretty decent,
Right.
okay?
And
So being able to actually like put yourself through a challenge, because when we have such a comfortable life, when we are faced with a real struggle, man, we can panic in the chaos of it all. But if we're constantly putting ourselves through controlled chaos, the project, a martial arts class, we're then suddenly going to be able to develop that AQ, and that muscle gets built where, you know what, I've been here before. Okay, I've done this before. I haven't done this, but I know how to handle this. I know how to handle this much better.
yeah. And yeah, we are in this era where everything is easy. Generally speaking, like everything is easy. Everything is at our fingertips, like literally on our phone. Everything is easy. And just instant gratification is such a big thing right now. Like if you want to be happy and laugh, it's on your phone. If you're hungry, it's on your phone. You know, all of those things are right at our fingertips, literally. And so it's easy for us to kind of fall into this easy life. And even us, right? Like, or even myself, like I find, you know, there's certain things you just fall into doing the easy thing.
Right.
So it's important to still find the ways that you can put yourself through the controlled chaos and challenge yourself, because inevitably there are going to be things that challenge you in life.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, yeah, martial arts is a whole challenge in itself, but that's the cool thing, is that we're exercising that AQ and increasing that. But outside of that, like in your schooling or in your career or in your family life or just life in general, there are going to be things that become challenging for you. And that's when you need to have that muscle exercised so
Right.
that you can take that.
Exactly. That's just it. So it is definitely something that, like, you know, anyway, you should do. Get yourself involved in martial arts. If your child is in it, then you should also do it too with them. You want to talk about setting an example, which we've done episodes on. Set the example and go through that struggle with them. Now, the other thing is too, and you kind of brought it up earlier, and I just want to touch on it before we kind of start wrapping things up here, is what are you doing when you come in? Because there is that idea of, you know, the instructors are going to administer the class, and it's the pain that's going to teach you, but are you actually going to put yourself into that pain, or are you going to go
Yes.
through the motions? Because that's a big difference. And if you are going to go through the motions in class, are you also then going to go through the motions at school, in your job, in your career, in your marriage, in your life? Like as a father, as a wife, as a mother, like if you're going to just go through the motions, like what sort of future are you going to create? So same thing here. If the objective of the class is to do 100 kicks on each leg, you know, and you're going to end up doing set after set, and it's going to feel like it's never going to end. Are you simply going to go through the motions of it and just kind of like pace it until the end gets there? Because the end will get there, and you know that, because no instructor is going to keep you there all night unless you're doing the project and Stevie has you there for 3 days. But you're not there all night. You know when the class is done. You know it's done in an hour, 45 minutes, 30 minutes. You know how much time is left. You can see it on the clock, right? So are you simply going to go through the motions, or are you going to bring the thunder every minute of every minute? Like every second you are there. So like being able to put yourself through the adversity, but like really get yourself to the brink, like right to that limit. Right when you think you can't do a little bit more, you just push a little bit deeper, and you go a little bit farther. You go a little bit faster. You go a little bit harder, right? So really think about that too, is like, yeah, I trained. This is awesome. I put myself through adversity too. But really think the next time you come in, what are you really, really bringing when you show up?
That's what I meant. Like for me,
Yeah.
I'm an athlete, like, you know, I'm fit, whatever. I can come to do a 45-hour long martial arts class and go through the motions. Like I can do that, and that it's not a challenge to me. So it's up to me to take on
That's
the
right.
class as a challenge.
Yep.
And so even the best of the best can come to any class and challenge
Absolutely.
them themselves.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's can be frustrating, I guess, sometimes to hear is like, oh, just 100 kicks, like,
Yeah, and that might be easier for you. Well, then what are you going to do to make it harder? Oh, I'm
right.
going to do that 100 kicks in 60 seconds. Boy, I did it in 60 seconds. That was pretty easy. I did it
Can
in
you
50
try-
seconds.
Yeah.
I did it in 55. My goal is 50.
Yeah. So
Oh,
like
I did it 50. My goal is 45. Like really like
keep
push.
setting the goals for yourself.
Right.
Like keep going and accepting that perfection is just not achievable and being okay with it, right? And just but striving for it, right?
Yep.
Like you're never ever gonna hit perfect, but you're gonna get the closest you possibly can to it, and that's up to you to make that choice to do that, right?
That's right.
Every single training session.
Exactly, and I like that part about what you just said there with the whole idea of like, well, this might be maybe a junior class for me, or maybe
Right.
maybe this is an easier class. Well, what are you doing to make it harder? Like, oh man, well, it's just patterns. I trust me, I can sweat my balls off in an hour of patterns. Like if I went over and over and just really like every muscle in my body is cranking through those invisible opponents where I'm doing the pattern. Trust me, I'm sweating. I'm working. I'm tired mentally and physically. But it's because when I do them, I'm bringing it. And we see it oftentimes too where people kind of hit that limit where they start to get, quote, bored.
Bored, yeah, and because they've accepted like they've done their best and they're
Right.
like, yeah, I'm awesome.
Right.
Like, and I'm talking like, you have a 12-year-old that's saying like, yeah, I've got a perfect turning kick. Like, I don't need to practice this anymore.
But
I'm
we
like,
see it with
well,
high level people too.
Yeah.
They come in with the idea that they're too good for this particular class or training or exercise. We just did one a couple weeks ago. We went and trained somewhere else, no place we've ever been, right? We didn't go into it with the attitude that like, well, these people are just the coaches in this class and I own a school and we have 350 students and this guy's just the and we went into it with the attitude of like, what are we going to pick up from this?
Yeah.
Like if we ain't going to learn, we're going to work. We're going to try our best in that 45-minute class or whatever it was, 40-minute or 50-minute class. Like we're going to go there and we're going to work our hardest to this level. It wasn't a black belt class, right? It was just a regular class,
color belt class, yeah.
right? But we went into it, had fun. We had laughs.
Yeah,
the
we
people
worked hard,
there,
too.
absolutely. Yeah. We made some friends, like
Right.
because we went into it with the attitude of like,
And I think we made them work harder because we went in there to
Right.
work hard. And so that energy just like feeds off
Yep.
to the other people around
absolutely, exactly. And so that's just it. So if it's like, well, the class might be easy. Well, you can make it hard. You can decide to make it hard, but then also think about what the example you're going to set for the other people in that room. So if you're going to show up and think, well, this is pretty easy, well, it's a pretty lame ass attitude you're going to have for everybody else that comes in. Because, oh man, like if I get to that level, I get to just like walk around like
Well,
nightly.
which I see that happening, right, in martial arts, but other areas
Absolutely.
as well, right? Like you earn your black belt or you earn
You get
your
complacent.
masters or you whatever. You think
Especially
that you're
there.
way up here but yeah, you become complacent in that and
I'm guilty of that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like when I actually speak of this, I'm actually not even thinking about like I'm thinking about the people right now in the top of my head who are completely, like they got their stripes and they're complacent as hell. But I have been there. And so hell, I've been there. Like I have been in that complacency. So I'm not even thinking about people in particular right now. I mean, I am, but I'm also thinking about myself here. Like I have been that complacent individual, that complacent black belt. And I can think back to like when I was just not really pushing myself through it. Steve has another quote, complacency kills. Oh man. And like when I think of that, like that's like complacency kills. And I don't want to be complacent. You don't want to get to that point where like you just coast through things. You just slowly die. It kills.
Well, and I think about you because you're a martial arts instructor. You're an amazing martial arts instructor. And you say that. You say, I am an awesome martial arts instructor. And you sometimes I feel like that maybe can come off as, I don't know what the right word is, like
Arrogant,
arrogant. Yeah, that's
egotistical.
the right.
Trust
Yeah.
me, I've been called it all.
Yeah, yeah. But all of you're saying those things and then we get those comments back. But you are ever going for greatness, right? Like yes, you are a great instructor and you'll say those things and people will call you arrogant. But what they don't see is that you are constantly and consistently and every single day figuring out how to be better and better each day. And that takes pain, right?
Yes.
Because there's just so much to it, and you having to put that 110% effort in every day, like you put in the pain, you go through the suffering, and yeah, you become a really awesome martial arts instructor by doing that, right?
No, and I appreciate you saying that. I honestly, it's like I'll jokes aside, and I'll take any compliment I can get any other time. Again, but
You're a great instructor.
I know, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Anybody else who wants to say that too. But for real though, like when you say that and you're like, oh man, like when I do hear the comment, oh, that's arrogant, that's egotistical. Yeah, but seriously, I show up and do it. I don't just say it like, oh, I'm the best instructor. I make sure that when I show up, I'm gonna damn well prove it. And I will prove it every second.
Yeah, every single time you get on the mat, you prove that you're the best instructor. But you're doing all the things behind the scenes to put yourself through that pain to make you a bigger, better instructor all the time.
Yeah. But even just the other day, like we just had a class on Thursday. Like, okay, so 30 years of training and teaching has been like 15 years. Okay? Men. Like the class that we just had recently, like last Thursday when I was teaching, like it was a like a party in here. Like the kids were like,
It was crazy.
it was like they were. But here's another thing too. I was putting them through pain.
That's the thing.
They were squatting. They were push-ups.
That's what I wanted to mention was like, it wasn't even like you had this super awesome sparring
wasn't
drill or
tag.
super awesome like tag drill or not tag drill, but like bag drill. Like it wasn't anything like that. Like I heard the noise up here. My office is upstairs here and I could hear the noise from the floor. And when I went down there, it was like push-ups. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're getting this energy from push-ups. And that's what happens when you're willing to put yourself through the pain to become the best instructor ever.
I appreciate that. But that exactly. And that's what you do is you just prove it too. So like, even though I'm just thinking to an example of people who show up to a class and think, well, this is a junior class or I'm better than them or whatever. So they go through the motions. I was teaching our level 3s, 4s. I think that what class was. Level 3s and 4s and 12 and under class.
Yeah.
Like, I could have had the attitude that like, well, they're just like, so for
They're
us,
just-
like that's red belt and under.
Yeah.
12-year-olds. I don't need to bring it. I will bring it for, no. I brought it to that one and the class before that when we were teaching the yellow belts and the one before that when we were teaching the 4-year-olds, like all of them. So it's the same thing. It's like, okay, I don't care what class it is I'm going to teach, whether it is at our school or when we went up to Edmonton and taught a weekend or seminar or training session up in Edmonton for a friend of ours, or when I went to Prince George and got to teach for 30 minutes because they asked if I would step in. Again, a leader just leads when he's called upon. So I went in there, and for that 30 minutes that I had, even though it was like totally random, just like, hey, would you mind doing a little piece here? I went in and I brought it for that. Like, I didn't know them. It was like white belt to red belts. But like when I had that moment, I brought it. So same thing when you're going into your class, like, is it comfortable to go in front of people I don't know and like teach classes when they're used to their instructor and their voices and all of their stuff? No, it's kind of uncomfortable. It's hard, but I embrace that discomfort. But because, just like you said, I put myself through challenging things all the time. A 24-hour weightlifting thing 2 weeks ago. A marathon that you and I ran didn't even run it for any. We just literally mapped out 26 miles and went and ran it. Why? So that way we could put ourselves through something difficult. Do we run all the time? You run more often than I do, of course. So you were way well prepared for that, and you crushed a time out there. But like, we're doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, because now, like, when we're like, boy, I gotta like go do something harder. You're like, well, okay, I've done.
And sometimes the pain that you're experiencing, like you don't know it's happening. But when you realize that it is happening, and so I'm kind of referring to like being overwhelmed or being overloaded, or you got lots on your plate, and like that's pain trying to get through all of it, but you don't realize that it's happening. And then once you get to a point where you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so overwhelmed, I think that moment that you understand that you are in the pain, that's when you lean in more and you're like, okay, I am in over my head, but I can lean in. I can figure out what I got to do to get through this obstacle. And you know that some sort of transformation is ready on the other side, right? So like when things get hard and they kind of sneak up on you, things, you know, slowly build, and you're overwhelmed, and all of a sudden you're feeling that way, like knowing that there is a transformation. If you lean into it, then that transformation is ready for you on the other side. And so that's kind of cool to get to that point where, you know, the pain kind of creeps in. You don't know that it's actually happening. Yeah.
But again, when you can find that lesson in there too, like just, awesome. Choose it. Anyway, so anyway, that's really what I want you guys to think about here. Is I really want you guys to think about putting yourself through more challenging things. And if you're already doing martial arts, that's awesome. Continue to keep doing it, keep pushing through, and understand that when you're feeling like it's getting repetitive, when you feel like it's getting too painful, like your body can't take it, like your mind can't take it, understand that when you're in that moment, you are literally on the brink of transformation. So if you can just continue to push past that little bit, that struggle, that adversity, that challenge, know that you're just on the brink. You are just literally right at the peak of transformation. And when you get there, when you get to that top, that's when you're going to see that the pain, the adversity, the struggle, all of that challenge that you've been putting yourself in through, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There is transformation, and you're going to be grateful that you continue to push through it. Now, all of us are going to experience it at different points. That's the thing to remember. Oh man, I feel like this person got it in, you know, a month. They figured it out. Heck, it took some of us in the project longer to learn some of the lessons. There's still stuff, even actually, like, to be honest, I still learn about it. Like that I still think, what were we doing? Oh man, and I still pick apart a little bit. But just know that you're on the cusp when you're feeling like you can't take anymore, mentally or physically. You are right on the edge of transformation. So I want to leave you guys there with that, is just remember that pain is the best instructor, but no one wants to go to his class. Start going to his class, start embracing the lesson, and start finding how you can lean into those things more. That's right. Find your own pit and initiate that transformation.
That's right. Choose your struggle and lean into the transformation that's coming.
That's right. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, I would actually greatly appreciate, we would really like to grow our YouTube channel. So if you are on YouTube here, we would appreciate a subscribe and a like, and maybe even just leave us a comment, maybe with one of your favorite martial arts quotes. You know, ours being, of course, pain is the best instructor, but no one wants to go to his class. Maybe you have a favorite martial arts quote that you would like to leave in the comments below. That would be really awesome. If you are listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please take 2 seconds, leave us a 5-star review. We would love to just have that review and that feedback from all of you guys, and those of you who do listen. If you found any value out of this and you feel like somebody else needs to hear this message, please do us a favor and share it with them, so that way they can get this message out to as many people as possible. Thank you guys all so much for listening to today's episode of Off the Mat. My name is Josh Dumoulin, and this is
Nicole Stratichuk.
and we will talk to you guys all next week.